The security footage never lied, and right now it was telling Vincent Moretti a story he didn't want to believe. He sat in the leather chair of his private office, the glow of 6 monitors casting harsh shadows across features that had been called handsome once, before the scar tissue and the weight of running Chicago's most powerful crime family had carved permanent severity into his face. It was 2:47 in the morning, and most of the city slept while he dissected betrayal frame by frame. Camera 4, the kitchen of his Gold Coast mansion, showed movement at 1:38 a.m. A figure in the standard household uniform, that pale blue dress his late mother had insisted all staff wear, moved with practiced silence through the commercial-grade space. The woman opened the refrigerator, the light painting her face in stark relief. Elena Vasquez, his head housekeeper for the past 18 months. 42 years old, spotless background check, references that read like poetry. A widow with a young daughter, working double shifts to make ends meet after her husband's death 3 years prior. And right now, on camera, she was filling a canvas bag with food from his kitchen. Vincent leaned forward, his jaw tightening as he watched her work. She wasn't grabbing randomly. She was selective, methodical. She took the roasted chicken the chef had prepared for tomorrow's lunch. She took vegetables from the crisper drawer. She took bread from the pantry, butter, cheese. She wrapped everything carefully, her movements efficient but not panicked. This wasn't impulse. This was routine. Vincent's finger hovered over the intercom that would summon his head of security. One call and Elena Vasquez would be in this office within 10 minutes, facing termination and possibly criminal charges. The Moretti family didn't tolerate theft. It was a matter of principle, of maintaining the fear and respect that kept Chicago's underworld functioning according to his rules. But something made him pause. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. He rewound the footage, watching again. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she packed the food. She stopped once, pressing her palm against the counter as if steadying herself. The overhead lights caught the exhaustion etched into her face, the dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't fully hide. Vincent had built an empire on reading people, on seeing the truth beneath the performance. Elena Vasquez wasn't stealing out of greed, she was stealing out of desperation. The question was why? He pulled up her employment file, scanning information he'd barely glanced at during the hiring process 18 months ago. Daughter, 7 years old, enrolled at St. Catherine's Elementary. No husband listed, marked as deceased. Current address in Pilsen, a neighborhood that had gentrified in patches but still held pockets of grinding poverty between the trendy restaurants and art galleries. He checked her salary. It was competitive, generous even by household staff standards. She should have been comfortable. Should have been. Vincent stood, the decision crystallizing with the cold clarity that defined every choice he made. He wouldn't call security. He would handle this personally. He would follow Elena Vasquez home and discover exactly what drove a woman with everything to lose to risk stealing from Vincent Moretti. He changed quickly, trading the expensive suit for dark jeans and a black jacket that let him blend into Chicago's night. He took the keys to the nondescript sedan he kept for exactly these situations, when being recognized as the head of the Moretti family would complicate matters. The mansion's security system showed Elena leaving through the service entrance at 2:53 a.m., the canvas bag clutched against her chest. Vincent waited 2 minutes, then followed. The November cold bit through the jacket as Vincent tracked the taillights of Elena's ancient Honda Civic through Chicago's late-night streets. The city looked different at this hour, stripped of its daytime pretense. The luxury of the Gold Coast gave way to the working-class grit of neighborhoods where people survived rather than thrived. Elena drove carefully, signaling every turn, never exceeding the speed limit. A woman who couldn't afford a traffic ticket, who couldn't risk any interaction with authority that might reveal what she was carrying. They crossed into Pilsen, past murals that screamed defiance and pride in equal measure. The Civic pulled into a spot on a street where half the streetlights were broken, parking in front of a three-story building that sagged with neglect. Vincent parked a block away, killing his headlights. He watched Elena climb out, scan the street with nervous energy, then hurry toward the building's entrance. She didn't go inside. Instead, she moved to the side alley, disappearing into shadows. Vincent gave her 30 seconds, then followed. The alley reeked of garbage and standing water, the smell of poverty that no amount of street art could mask. He moved silently, years of hunting instincts making his footsteps disappear against the urban decay. He heard her voice before he saw her. "I know it's late, baby. I'm sorry, but look what I brought." Vincent pressed against the brick wall, peering around the corner. Elena knelt beside a recessed doorway, the kind of space homeless people claimed as territory. But this wasn't a homeless encampment. A small figure emerged from the shadows. A child, maybe 7 years old, with Elena's dark hair and delicate features. She wore layers of mismatched clothing, a pink winter coat over what looked like pajamas, and she was clutching a stuffed rabbit that had seen better years. The little girl's face lit up when she saw the canvas bag. "Is it food, Mama? Real food?" "Real food, Sophia. The good kind." Elena pulled out the roasted chicken, still wrapped in foil, and the child's eyes went wide with wonder that should have been reserved for Christmas morning, not cold poultry in a dark alley at 3 in the morning. Vincent felt something cold settle in his stomach. Elena unwrapped the chicken carefully, tearing off pieces of meat with her fingers and handing them to Sophia, who ate with the focused intensity of someone who didn't know when the next meal would come. The child didn't speak while she chewed, didn't pause to breathe properly, just consumed with desperate efficiency. "Slow down, mi amor," Elena whispered, her voice breaking. "You'll make yourself sick." "I'm so hungry, Mama. My stomach stopped hurting yesterday, but that's worse. When it stops hurting, that's when I get so tired." Vincent watched Elena's face crumple, watched her fight to hold back tears as she stroked her daughter's hair. "I know, baby, I know. But you're eating now. Tomorrow I get paid, and we'll have more. We'll have so much more." Sophia nodded, still chewing, and asked the question that made Vincent's blood run cold. "Can we go home tomorrow? Back to our real home? I'm tired of sleeping here." "Soon," Elena lied, the word barely audible. "Very soon." Vincent's eyes adjusted fully to the darkness, and he saw what he'd missed initially. This wasn't a temporary stop. This was where they lived. The recessed doorway had been transformed into a shelter. Cardboard boxes flattened and arranged to block the wind. Blankets, thin, inadequate blankets, piled in the corner. A small battery-powered lantern that provided minimal light and less warmth. A plastic bin that held what looked like their entire worldly possessions. Elena Vasquez, his head housekeeper, the woman who managed a staff of 12 and ensured his mansion ran with perfect efficiency, was homeless. She and her daughter were living in an alley. The rage that built in Vincent's chest wasn't directed at Elena. It was aimed at himself, at his failure to see what was happening under his own roof, at a system that let a hard-working woman and her child fall through cracks that shouldn't exist. He watched Elena divide the food carefully, giving Sophia the majority while taking only small bites herself. She pulled out the bread and made a sandwich, wrapping it carefully and placing it in a plastic bag. "For tomorrow," she explained to Sophia. "For your lunch at school." "What about your lunch, Mama?" "I eat at work, remember? The chef always has leftovers." Another lie. Vincent knew for a fact that staff meals were provided, but Elena never ate them. He'd assumed she preferred to eat alone, respecting her privacy. Now he understood. She was taking the food home. Except she didn't have a home. Sophia finished eating, her small body finally relaxing as hunger released its grip. She curled against her mother, the stuffed rabbit clutched tight. "Mama, why can't we stay at Mr. Moretti's house? You work there all the time. He has so many rooms." Elena's laugh was bitter and broken. "It doesn't work like that, baby. Those rooms aren't for people like us. But you work so hard. You told me hard work means good things happen." "I lied," Elena whispered, so quietly Vincent almost missed it. "Sometimes you work as hard as you can, and nothing good happens at all. Sometimes the world just breaks you anyway." She wrapped the blankets around Sophia, tucking her in with the kind of tenderness that made Vincent's throat constrict. She sang softly in Spanish, a lullaby that drifted through the cold November air, beautiful and heartbreaking in equal measure. Vincent stood in the shadows, watching this woman who cleaned his floors and managed his household, watching her transform into a mother trying to shield her child from a reality too cruel for either of them to deserve. When Sophia's breathing evened out in sleep, Elena allowed herself to cry. Silent tears that tracked down her cheeks as she held her daughter, rocking slightly, the stuffed rabbit trap between them. Vincent had seen many things in his 43 years. He'd watched men die, had ordered deaths himself when business demanded it. He'd witnessed betrayal and violence, had navigated a world where weakness meant extinction. But watching Elena Vasquez cry silently in an alley while her daughter slept in a cardboard shelter broke something in him he hadn't known could still break. He turned away, moving back through the alley toward his car. His mind was already working, already formulating plans. But for the first time in years, those plans weren't about business or territory or maintaining power. They were about fixing something that shouldn't have been broken in the first place. Vincent didn't sleep. He returned to the mansion and spent the remaining hours before dawn making phone calls, pulling records, and unraveling the mystery of how Elena Vasquez had gone from employed homeowner to homeless mother living in an alley. What he discovered made the cold rage in his chest crystallize into something sharp and actionable. 18 months ago, Elena's husband had died in a construction accident. The company he worked for had been operating without proper insurance, cutting corners to maximize profit. When Diego Vasquez fell 4 stories from an unsecured scaffold, the company declared bankruptcy before the lawsuit could proceed. Elena received nothing. She'd tried to maintain the mortgage on their small house in Pilsen, working double shifts, selling everything of value. But Chicago's housing market was brutal, and when she missed 3 payments, the bank foreclosed with stunning efficiency. The eviction had happened 6 months ago. For 6 months, Elena and Sophia had been homeless, while Elena maintained the perfect facade of competence and dignity at work. She showed up every day, managed his household with flawless efficiency, and never once revealed that she was returning to an alley. Every night, the background check his security team had run never caught it because Elena had been careful. She kept her work address current, had bills sent to a P.O. box, and maintained the appearance of stability even as everything crumbled. Vincent pulled up the security footage from the past 6 months, searching for signs he should have seen. Elena's weight loss, which he'd attributed to stress. The way she volunteered for every extra shift, which he'd interpreted as dedication. The fact that she never took time off, even when sick, because she couldn't afford to lose a single day's pay. The signs had been there. He'd simply been too focused on his own empire to notice the collapse of hers. His phone buzzed at 5:30 a.m. Marcus Chen, his most trusted associate and the closest thing Vincent had to a friend. "You're up early," Marcus observed. "Someone dead?" "Not yet," Vincent said. "But I need you to handle something." "What kind of something?" "The legal kind. I need a property acquired, renovated, and made livable within 72 hours. I need a trust established, and I need it done quietly enough that the recipient doesn't know where it came from. Marcus was silent for a moment. This is about a woman. It's about an employee. Same thing. Vincent, you're not usually the charitable type. What's going on? Vincent looked at the security footage frozen on his screen. Elena's exhausted face caught in the refrigerator light as she stole food to feed her daughter. She's been stealing from me, Vincent said quietly. And I'm going to make sure she never has to steal again. Elena Vasquez arrived at the mansion at 6 a.m., exactly as scheduled. She came through the service entrance, her uniform pressed despite circumstances that should have made such care impossible. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her makeup carefully applied to hide the exhaustion and desperation underneath. She moved through the kitchen with practiced efficiency, starting coffee and beginning preparations for breakfast service. The other staff arrived gradually, and Elena greeted each with professional warmth, the perfect head housekeeper who had everything under control. Vincent watched from his office, the security feeds showing him a performance worthy of any actress. She was magnificent in her deception, maintaining dignity in the face of circumstances that would have destroyed someone weaker. At 7:15, he pressed the intercom. "Elena, please come to my office." There was a pause, then her voice, steady and professional. "Of course, Mr. Moretti, I'll be right up." He could see her on the monitors, saw the way her hands trembled slightly as she removed her apron, the way she took a deep breath before leaving the kitchen. She thought she was being fired. She thought he'd discovered her theft. She had no idea what was actually about to happen. Elena stood outside Vincent Moretti's office door, her heart hammering against her ribs with such force. She thought it might crack through bone. Her hand hovered over the brass handle, trembling despite her efforts to steady it. She knew. She had to know. There was no other reason he would summon her at this hour. No other explanation for the formality of his tone through the intercom. He'd discovered the theft. She thought she'd been careful. She'd only taken food that would be thrown away, leftovers from meals the chef prepared for Vincent's business associates, things that would rot in the refrigerator before anyone noticed they were missing. She'd been doing it for 3 months. Ever since the shelter where she and Sophia had been staying reached capacity and turned them away. 3 months of stealing to survive, 3 months of lying to her daughter that everything would be okay, 3 months of maintaining the perfect facade at work while living in an alley at night. And now, it was over. Elena straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and opened the door. If she was going to be fired, she would face it with whatever dignity she had left. Vincent Moretti sat behind his massive desk, the early morning light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of Chicago stretching out like a kingdom beneath him. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than she'd earned in 3 months, his dark hair touched with silver at the temples, his face unreadable. He didn't look angry. That somehow made it worse. "Close the door, Elena." She did, the click of the latch sounding like a cell door locking. She walked forward, stopping at a respectful distance from the desk, her hands clasped in front of her to hide their shaking. "Mr. Moretti, if this is about... How long have you been living in the alley behind your former address?" The question hit her like a physical blow. Her carefully constructed composure cracked, shock flooding her face before she could stop it. I don't... 6 months, Vincent said, answering his own question. 6 months since the bank foreclosed on your house. 6 months of you and Sophia sleeping in a doorway while you come here every day and pretend everything is fine. Elena's legs threatened to give out. She gripped the back of the leather chair in front of her, needing the support. "How did you..." Her voice emerged as barely a whisper. "I followed you last night," Vincent said. His tone was matter-of-fact, but something flickered in his dark eyes that looked almost like shame. "After I saw you taking food from the kitchen, I wanted to know why." The tears came before she could stop them, hot and humiliating, destroying the last remnants of her professional mask. She tried to speak, tried to form an apology or explanation, but only a broken sound emerged from her throat. Please, she finally managed. Please, Mr. Moretti, I'll pay you back. Every cent. I kept track of everything I took. I have a list. I'll work for free. I'll do anything. Just please don't call the police. If they take me away, Sophia has no one. She has absolutely no one. Vincent stood, walking around the desk with the predatory grace that reminded everyone who looked at him too long that he was more than just a businessman. He stopped in front of Elena, close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. Why didn't you ask for help? The question was so unexpected that Elena's tears momentarily stopped from sheer confusion. What? Why didn't you tell me you were homeless? Why didn't you ask for an advance on your salary or request emergency housing assistance? Why steal instead of asking? Elena stared at him, incredulous laughter bubbling up alongside her tears. Ask Vincent Moretti for help? Ask the man who... She stopped, some survival instinct finally kicking in before she said something that would make this worse. Who what? Vincent's voice dropped dangerously low. Say it, Elena. Who scares everyone in this city? She finished quietly. Who people whisper about like you're not quite human? Who built an empire on fear and control? You think I could have walked into this office and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Moretti, but my daughter and I are homeless. Could you spare some change?" You would have fired me on the spot for being a liability. You're wrong. Am I? Elena's desperation was turning into something sharper, reckless. You fire people for being 10 minutes late. You fired Maria because she broke a coffee cup. You don't tolerate weakness. Everyone knows that. So I hid mine. I hid it so well I thought I could survive, until I saved enough for a deposit on a new place, until I could get back on my feet. I thought I could make it. And instead, you're stealing chicken from my refrigerator to feed your 7-year-old in an alley. The words were brutal in their accuracy. Elena flinched. Yes, she whispered. Yes, that's exactly what I'm doing. So fire me, Mr. Moretti. Call the police if you want, but please, please let me make one phone call first. Let me call my friend Teresa and ask her to pick up Sophia from the alley before anyone else finds her. She's alone right now, sleeping in a doorway, and if I don't come back... She's not alone. Elena's head snapped up. What? Vincent pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped the screen, and turned it toward her. The image showed the alley, but from an angle Elena didn't recognize, a security camera view. In the frame, Sophia slept in the cardboard shelter, wrapped in inadequate blankets. But sitting beside her, back against the brick wall, was a large man in a dark jacket. Elena recognized him immediately, Marcus Chen, Vincent's head of security. You sent someone to watch her? I sent someone to protect her, Vincent corrected. Did you really think I was going to leave a 7-year-old alone in an alley while I had this conversation? Elena couldn't process it. The man she'd been terrified of for 18 months, the man whose reputation made grown criminals nervous, had sent his personal security to guard her daughter while he confronted her about stealing. I don't understand. I know you don't. Vincent put the phone away. Sit down, Elena. We need to talk, and you look like you're about to collapse. She wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of pride, but her legs were shaking too badly. She sank into the leather chair, and Vincent returned to his seat behind the desk. I'm not firing you, he said. Elena blinked. You're not? No, what I'm doing is considerably more complicated than that. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the polished surface toward her. Open it. With trembling hands, Elena opened the folder. Inside were documents, legal papers with official seals and notarized signatures. She tried to read them, but the words swam together, her exhausted brain unable to process the legalese. What is this? That, Vincent said, is the deed to a 3-bedroom house in Pilsen, 2 blocks from St. Catherine's Elementary. It's been fully renovated, furnished, and stocked with enough food to last a month. The property taxes are paid 5 years in advance. It's yours. Elena stared at the papers, then at Vincent, then back at the papers. That's not funny, Mr. Moretti. I'm not joking. This says... She squinted at the print, forcing herself to focus. This says the house is owned by the Moretti Family Trust, held for the benefit of Elena and Sofia Vasquez. This isn't... You can't just give someone a house. I can do whatever I want, Vincent said. That's the benefit of owning half of Chicago. The house is yours to live in for as long as you need it. There's no rent, no mortgage, no strings attached beyond one condition. There it was. The catch. Elena had known it was coming. What condition? You keep working for me? Elena's eyes narrowed with suspicion. Why? Because you're the best head housekeeper I've ever had, and I don't want to have to train someone new. Because your organizational skills are exceptional, and I need someone who can manage chaos with the efficiency you bring to this household. And because... He stopped, something flickering across his face that looked almost vulnerable before the mask slid back into place. Because Sofia deserves better than an alley, and you deserve better than stealing food to survive. Consider it a benefits package. Benefits packages don't include free houses. Mine do. Vincent's tone shifted, becoming more authoritative. Here's what's going to happen, Elena. You're going to take the rest of the day off. Marcus is going to drive you and Sofia to your new house. You're going to settle in. Let Sofia see her new room, and you're going to sleep in an actual bed for the first time in 6 months. Tomorrow, you'll come back to work. Everything continues as normal, except you stop stealing from my kitchen because you now have your own kitchen, fully stocked. Elena shook her head, overwhelmed. I can't accept this. It's too much. You don't even know us. I know enough. I know you work harder than anyone else on my staff. I know you sing to your daughter in Spanish when she's scared. I know you gave her the majority of that chicken last night while you ate almost nothing yourself. I know you're a good mother in impossible circumstances, and I have the resources to make those circumstances less impossible, so I'm going to do exactly that. Why? The question came out as a desperate plea. Why would you do this? People like you don't help people like me without wanting something. Vincent's jaw tightened. People like me? Powerful people. Dangerous people. Elena knew she should stop talking, but she couldn't. Everyone knows who you are, Mr. Moretti. Everyone knows what you do. And people in your position don't hand out houses without expecting something in return. So what do you want? What am I really trading for this house? The silence that followed was heavy and dangerous. Vincent stood slowly, walking around the desk again, and Elena's survival instinct screamed at her to run. But she held her ground, lifting her chin to meet his gaze, even as her heart hammered with fear. You want to know what I want? Vincent's voice was quiet, lethal. I want to not have to watch a 7-year-old eat stolen chicken in an alley like it's a feast. I want to not have to see a woman who works 16-hour shifts living in a cardboard box because the world is cruel and unfair and grinds good people into dust. I want to use the power and resources I have to fix something that should never have been broken in the first place. He leaned against his desk, his dark eyes boring into hers. You're right, Elena. I am dangerous. I am powerful. And I have done things that would horrify you if you knew the details. But I'm also capable of basic human decency, and watching you and Sofia suffer when I could prevent it with a phone call and some money that means nothing to me, that's not power. That's cowardice. So yes, I'm giving you a house. And no, you don't have to do anything except keep being excellent at your job. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Elena searched his face for deception, for the hidden trap she knew had to be there. But all she saw was anger. Anger on her behalf. Anger at circumstances she'd accepted as unchangeable. Anger at a world that let children go hungry while men like him had more than they could ever use. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Vincent said. Say thank you if you want to be polite about it. But mostly just say you'll stop sleeping in alleys and let me fix this one small thing in a world full of things I can't fix. The tears came again, but different this time. Not tears of fear or desperation, but of overwhelming relief so profound it felt like drowning and being saved simultaneously. Yes, Elena whispered. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. I can't. You can, Vincent said firmly. You've been surviving impossible circumstances with grace and strength. Now you're going to do the considerably easier task of accepting help. Marcus is waiting downstairs. He'll take you to Sofia, then to your new home. Take tomorrow off as well. Come back Monday, and we'll continue as if this conversation never happened. Elena stood on shaking legs. She clutched the folder to her chest like a lifeline, still half convinced she would wake up in the alley and discover this had all been a desperate dream. Mr. Moretti, I will work harder than I've ever worked. I promise you won't regret this. Elena. His voice stopped her rambling. Go get your daughter. Let her see her new room. That's all I need from you right now. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She turned toward the door, then stopped. Why did you really follow me last night? Vincent was quiet for a moment. Because I needed to know if you were stealing out of greed or necessity. And because somewhere in the process of building my empire, I forgot that the people who work for me are human beings with lives and struggles beyond these walls. You reminded me. Now go, before I change my mind about the time off. Elena left the office, walking through the mansion in a daze. Marcus was indeed waiting by the service entrance, his massive frame blocking most of the doorway. Ready, Mrs. Vasquez? Yes. But Sofia, she's in the alley, and she'll be scared if she wakes up and I'm not. She's already in the car, Marcus said gently. We have staff watching her through breakfast. She's eating pancakes in the back seat and asking about the stuffed animal collection in her new room. Her new room has a stuffed animal collection? Mr. Moretti was very specific about the furnishings. Your daughter's room is apparently themed around woodland creatures. There's a mural and everything. Elena felt the tears threaten again. She followed Marcus to the car, not an intimidating black SUV, but a normal sedan that wouldn't terrify a 7-year-old. Through the window, she could see Sofia, her daughter's face bright with syrup and wonder as she examined what looked like a stuffed fox. Mama! Sofia pressed her face against the window when she saw Elena. Mama, the man said we have a new house. A real house with beds and a kitchen, and he said, I get my own room with animals everywhere. Is it true? Please say it's true. Elena climbed into the back seat and pulled her daughter into her arms, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the solid reality of her small body. It's true, mi amor. It's all true. The house was perfect. Not perfect in the overwhelming, intimidating way Vincent's mansion was perfect, but perfect in the way that felt like home. It was a narrow 3-story building with fresh paint the color of warm cream, window boxes filled with late-season mums, and a small front porch with 2 rocking chairs. Sofia exploded from the car the moment Marcus parked, running up the front steps with her stuffed rabbit clutched in one hand. Is this really ours, Mama? Can we go inside? Elena looked at Marcus, who held out a key ring. All yours, Mrs. Vasquez. The security system code is written down inside, along with contact numbers for utilities and services. Everything's been activated and paid for. You just have to live in it. The key felt heavy in Elena's hand, weighted with possibilities she'd stopped believing existed. She unlocked the front door, and Sofia pushed past her with 7-year-old impatience. The interior took Elena's breath away. The living room held a comfortable couch in soft gray, chairs that invited sinking into, and built-in bookshelves already filled with volumes. The kitchen gleamed with new appliances. The refrigerator stocked exactly as Vincent had promised. There were dishes in the cabinets, towels in the bathroom, toiletries still in packaging on the counter. Someone had thought of everything. Sophia's shriek of joy came from upstairs, and Elena followed the sound to find her daughter spinning in circles in a bedroom that looked like a fairy tale. The walls were painted soft green, with a hand-painted mural of a forest scene covering one entire wall. Deer, rabbits, foxes, and birds populated the branches and meadow, rendered in delicate detail that spoke of professional artistry. The bed was a white frame with a canopy of gauzy fabric, piled with pillows and a comforter in shades of green and brown. A bookshelf held children's books. A desk sat beneath the window with art supplies already organized in colorful containers. And yes, there was an entire collection of woodland creature stuffed animals arranged on a window seat. "Mama, it's the most beautiful room in the whole world," Sophia breathed, running her hands over the mural. "Did Mr. Moretti really make this for me?" "He did, baby. Can we say thank you? I want to tell him thank you." Elena's throat tightened. "We will. I promise we'll tell him thank you." She found her own room at the end of the hall, and if Sophia's room was a fairy tale, this one was a sanctuary. A queen-sized bed with a real mattress, thick and soft with pillows that looked like clouds. A dresser, a closet with hangers already installed, and an attached bathroom with a soaking tub. A soaking tub. Elena walked to it like a woman in a trance. She turned on the water, watching it flow hot and clean and abundant. When had she last taken a real bath? When had she last felt hot water without the timer of a public facility ticking down her precious minutes? She turned off the water, afraid to use it yet, afraid this entire situation would dissolve if she indulged too quickly. Marcus appeared in the doorway. "Everything satisfactory?" "It's more than satisfactory. It's—" Elena searched for words adequate to the situation. "It's a miracle." "Mr. Moretti doesn't believe in miracles. He believes in solutions." Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Your advance on salary. 3 months. Worth. To help with expenses while you settle in. And before you argue, it's not charity. It's standard policy for employees facing housing transitions." Elena took the envelope, too overwhelmed to argue. "Is it always like this? Working for him?" "No," Marcus said honestly. "Vincent Moretti is not typically a charitable man. He's fair. He's generous with those who serve him well, but he doesn't usually involve himself in personal situations. You and Sophia got under his skin somehow. Consider yourselves lucky." "I do. God, I do. One more thing." Marcus's expression became more serious. "The house is yours, but it's also monitored. Security cameras on the exterior, panic buttons in every room. Mr. Moretti takes care of his people, and that means ensuring they're safe. Don't be alarmed if you see periodic security checks. It's standard." Elena nodded, too grateful to question the level of protection. "Thank you, Marcus, for watching Sophia this morning, for everything." "Just doing my job, ma'am. Welcome home." After Marcus left, Elena sat on her new bed and let herself cry. Sophia found her there, climbing up to nestle against her mother's side. "Are you sad, Mama?" "No, baby, I'm happy. Sometimes people cry when they're happy." "Because of Mr. Moretti?" "Yes, because of Mr. Moretti." Sophia was quiet for a moment, processing. "Is he like a prince? In the stories, princes save people." Elena thought about Vincent's scarred hands, his reputation that made hardened criminals nervous, the cold calculation in his eyes that suggested he'd done things princes in fairy tales never dreamed of. "No, Amor, he's not a prince. He's something else entirely." "But he saved us?" Elena pulled her daughter closer. "Yes, he saved us." Sunday passed in a haze of settling in, of Sophia exploring every corner of their new home with infectious joy, of Elena taking that long bath and crying through most of it. They slept in real beds, under real blankets, with real walls keeping out the November cold. Elena woke Monday morning to sunlight streaming through curtains in her own bedroom, to the sound of Sophia singing in her room down the hall, to the impossible reality that this wasn't a dream. She dressed carefully in her uniform, braided her hair with steady hands that no longer trembled from exhaustion and malnutrition, and took the bus to Vincent's mansion with her head high. The other staff greeted her normally, no one aware of what had transpired over the weekend. She moved through her duties with renewed energy, managing the household with the efficiency Vincent had praised. She didn't see him until late afternoon. He was in his office when she knocked, carrying the tea service he preferred at 4 o'clock. He looked up from his computer when she entered, his expression unreadable. "Elena, you're back." "As promised, Mr. Moretti." She set the tea service on his desk, arranging it exactly as he liked. "Thank you for the time off. The house is satisfactory?" "It's more than satisfactory. It's... There aren't words adequate for what you've done for us." Vincent waved a dismissive hand. "It's a house. I own dozens of them. It's not just a house." Elena's voice was firm despite her nervousness at contradicting him. "It's safety. It's dignity. It's my daughter sleeping through the night without being terrified of what might happen in the dark. So thank you, Mr. Moretti. Thank you for seeing us as human beings worth saving." Something flickered across Vincent's face, too quick to identify. He cleared his throat, returning his attention to his computer. "You're welcome. Now, about the Thanksgiving preparations. I'm hosting 12 people this year, and I'll need..." They fell into discussing household business, the professional dynamic reasserting itself. But something had shifted between them, an understanding that transcended employer and employee. Elena left his office and returned to her duties, moving through the mansion that had once terrified her with its perfection. It still intimidated her with its wealth and power, but now she understood that behind that power was a man capable of compassion, even if he hid it behind efficiency and authority. She didn't know that Vincent watched her on the security monitors as she worked, or that he'd already made arrangements for Sophia's Christmas presents to be delivered early December, or that he'd established a college fund in the little girl's name that would ensure her education through graduate school. He told himself it was just good business, taking care of valuable employees. He told himself it had nothing to do with the way Elena's tears had made his chest tight, or the way Sophia's joy at her new room had felt like absolution for sins he'd never sought forgiveness for. He told himself a lot of things. None of them were entirely true. 3 months passed with a normalcy that felt revolutionary. Elena Vasquez woke each morning in a bed that didn't collapse under her weight, made breakfast in a kitchen filled with food she hadn't stolen, and sent Sophia to school with lunches packed in cheerful containers instead of plastic bags hiding contraband. Her daughter thrived, the hollows in her cheeks filling out, the perpetual exhaustion in her 7-year-old eyes replaced by the bright energy childhood should contain. At work, Elena managed Vincent's household with even greater efficiency than before. Without the crushing weight of survival consuming every moment, she could focus entirely on her responsibilities. She anticipated needs before they arose, managed crises with calm competence, and ran the mansion with such precision that Vincent's business associates frequently commented on the seamless perfection of his home. But something else was developing beneath the professional surface, something neither of them acknowledged, but both felt with increasing intensity. Vincent found reasons to need Elena's input on matters that didn't require her expertise. Color. Schemes for rooms he never entered. Menu planning for dinners he could have directed the chef to handle. Scheduling that, his assistant could have managed perfectly well. He told himself it was about efficiency, about utilizing her organizational skills. He ignored the way his pulse quickened when she entered a room, the way he'd begun timing his coffee breaks to coincide with her presence in the kitchen, the way he'd caught himself watching her on the security monitors more than operational necessity demanded. Elena noticed. She noticed everything. She noticed the way Vincent's harsh edges softened slightly when Sophia visited the mansion, how he'd arranged for the little girl to come to work with her mother on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving when school released early. She noticed how Sophia had wandered into his office that afternoon, clutching her stuffed fox, and how Vincent had set aside the contracts he'd been reviewing to answer her questions about the books on his shelves. She noticed how he'd crouched down to Sophia's level, his dangerous hands gentle as he'd handed her a first edition of The Secret Garden, telling her she could borrow it if she promised to take care of it. She noticed how Sophia had thrown her arms around his neck in gratitude, and how Vincent had frozen for a moment before awkwardly patting her back, his expression equal parts terrified and tender. Most of all, Elena noticed how she'd started thinking of Vincent Moretti not as her employer or her salvation, but as something far more complicated and dangerous to her heart. It terrified her. She was still processing these feelings on a cold Friday evening in late February, when everything changed. Elena was finishing inventory in the main pantry when Vincent's voice came through the intercom, sharp with an urgency she'd never heard before. "Elena. My office. Now." She arrived within 90 seconds, her heart pounding. Vincent stood by the window, his phone pressed to his ear, his body language radiating controlled fury. "I don't care what you have to do, Marcus. Find him. Find him and bring him here." He ended the call and turned to Elena. "Where's Sophia?" The question made Elena's blood run cold. "She's at Teresa's house for a playdate. Why? Vincent, what's wrong?" He held up his phone, showing her a photograph. It was Sophia, taken today based on her clothing, walking out of St. Catherine's Elementary. The angle suggested it had been taken from across the street, telephoto lens capturing her in perfect clarity. The photo had been sent from an unknown number with a single message. "Pretty little girl. Would be a shame if something happened to her." Elena's knees buckled. Vincent caught her before she hit the floor, guiding her to a chair with hands that were surprisingly gentle despite the violence radiating from every line of his body. "Who?" Elena's voice emerged as a broken whisper. "Who would do this?" "Santoro family," Vincent said, the name dropping like a stone, into dark water. "Carlo Santoro is trying to expand his territory into my distribution networks. I've been blocking him for 6 months. This is him applying pressure." "By threatening my daughter?" Elena's fear was transforming into rage, a mother's protective fury that burned hotter than any terror. "By threatening a 7-year-old child? By threatening what I care about." Vincent's words hung in the air, heavy with implications neither of them was ready to examine. He immediately shifted back to logistics. "Marcus is already en route to Teresa's house with a full security team. He'll bring Sophia here, where I can protect her properly. You're both staying in the mansion until this is resolved." "How do you resolve someone threatening to hurt my baby?" Vincent's eyes went cold, the softness she'd glimpsed over the past months vanishing behind the mask of the man who controlled Chicago's underworld. "By making it very clear what happens to people who touch what's mine." Sophia arrived 20 minutes later, flanked by Marcus and 3 other security personnel who looked like they could stop a tank. The little girl was confused but not frightened, treating the armed escort as an adventure rather than a crisis. "Mama! Mr. Marcus let me sit in the front seat and we went super fast. Are we having a sleepover at Mr. Moretti's house?" Elena pulled her daughter into her arms, breathing in the scent of her hair, checking her over with hands that couldn't stop shaking. "Yes, baby, a sleepover. Won't that be fun?" "Will I get to see Mr. Moretti's library again? He said I could borrow more books when I finished the garden one." "We'll see, Amor. Right now, you need to stay close to Mama, okay? Very close." Vincent appeared in the doorway of the entrance hall, and Sophia's face lit up with uncomplicated joy. "Mr. Moretti, Are we really staying at your house? Do I get to pick which room? Something in Vincent's expression cracked when Sophia ran toward him. He caught her easily, lifting her up with the automatic grace of someone who'd been practicing. You get the blue room, he said. Third floor, facing the garden. It has a window seat perfect for reading. Can I go see it now? Marcus will show you, Vincent said, setting her down carefully. Your mama and I need to talk about grown-up things for a few minutes. Sophia nodded seriously, then hugged Vincent's legs before running off with Marcus. Vincent watched her go, something raw and vulnerable in his expression, before he turned to Elena. My study. We need to discuss security protocols. They walked in silence through corridors Elena had cleaned 1,000 times, but which now felt different, charged with tension that had nothing to do with threats from rival families. In the study, Vincent poured 2 glasses of bourbon, handing her one despite her protests that she was still on duty. You're not working tonight. Tonight you're a guest under my protection. He downed his bourbon in one swallow. Carlo, Santoro operates out of a warehouse on the south side. He has maybe 20 soldiers, small operation trying to punch above its weight class. The photo was meant to intimidate me into backing off the distribution routes. And will you? Elena gripped her glass, not drinking. Will you back off to keep Sophia safe? Vincent looked at her like she'd suggested he cut off his own hand. No. No? Elena's voice rose. Vincent, he threatened my daughter. And if I back down, he learns that threatening you and Sophia is effective. He'll do it again. And next time, it won't be a photo. Next time, it'll be an actual attempt. Vincent's voice was hard, uncompromising. The only way to keep you safe is to eliminate the threat permanently. What does that mean, eliminate? It means I'm going to have a conversation with Carlo Santoro that ends with him understanding, at a cellular level, that you and Sophia are untouchable. That harming either of you would bring down consequences so severe that he'd prefer death. Elena set down her glass with shaking hands. You're talking about violence. I'm talking about protection. There's a difference. Is there? Elena stood, pacing to the window. 3 months ago, you gave me a house. You saved my daughter from sleeping in an alley. You've been kind to us. Gentle even. And I started to forget what you actually are. But this... She gestured at the phone with its threatening message. This reminds me that you live in a world where people threaten children and violence is currency. I've never pretended to be anything other than what I am, Vincent said quietly. I know. Elena turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. I know. And that's what makes this so hard. Because I've fallen in love with you anyway. The words detonated in the space between them like a grenade. Vincent stared at her, his carefully controlled expression shattering into shock. Elena, don't. She held up a hand, stopping him. Don't say anything. I know it's inappropriate. I know I'm your employee. I know you saved us out of decency, not because you had feelings for me. I know all of it. But I can't watch you walk into danger for us. Can't watch you prepare to do violence on our behalf, without telling you the truth. She wiped at her tears with angry swipes. I love you, Vincent Moretti. I love the way you pretend to be harsh but go soft when Sophia hugs you. I love how you memorized which books she'd like. I love that you think giving someone a house is just solving a problem when it's actually saving a life. I love you, and I'm terrified that this situation with Santoro will end with you hurt, or worse, and I can't. Vincent crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. He cupped her face in his scarred hands, tilting her head up to meet his fierce gaze. I have wanted you since the day you walked into my office 6 months ago, terrified and magnificent, clutching that deed like a weapon. I have been in love with you for at least 4 months, possibly since the night I watched you sing to Sophia in that alley. I have fought these feelings because you work for me, because the power dynamic is impossible, Because I had no right to want you after everything you'd been through. He leaned his forehead against hers, his voice dropping to a rough whisper. But I do want you. I want to come home to you and Sophia. I want to teach her to read Latin and take you to dinner and wake up with you in my bed. I want all of it, Elena, with an intensity that terrifies me. So when Carlo Santoro threatened you both, he didn't just cross a business line, he threatened my family. And I will burn his entire operation to ash before I let him touch either of you. Elena's tears were flowing freely now, but she was smiling through them. Your family? If you'll have us, yes. Me and all the darkness I carry. Me and the dangerous world I navigate. Me and my absolutely non-negotiable need to protect you both with everything I have. You idiot. Elena laughed through her tears. I already said I love you. That's the having you part. Vincent kissed her. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. It wasn't gentle. It was months of restrained want, of professional distance carefully maintained, of longing neither had dared to acknowledge exploding into desperate need. His hands tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, and she wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing against him like she could somehow absorb him into her skin. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. I still need to handle Santoro. I know, Elena said, but you're coming back to us. That's non-negotiable. I always come back. That's what I do. The next 48 hours existed in a strange, suspended reality. Sophia, blissfully unaware of the danger, treated their stay at the mansion like an extended adventure. She explored the library with Vincent as her guide, ate meals in the formal dining room with wide-eyed wonder, and fell asleep each night in the blue bedroom with its window seat and collection of books Vincent kept adding to. Elena divided her time between maintaining her household duties, because routine provided comfort, and watching Vincent orchestrate a response to Santoro's threat with cold, methodical precision. He didn't hide it from her. He told her everything, how Marcus and his team had identified every member of Santoro's operation, how Vincent had contacted his allies and other families, calling in favors and making it clear that an attack on Elena or Sophia would be considered an attack on the Moretti family itself. How he'd arranged a meeting with Carlo Santoro at neutral territory to discuss terms. It's not really a discussion, Vincent explained over dinner on the second night. Sophia, already tucked into bed. It's a demonstration. I'm going to make it very clear, with witnesses from 5 other families present, what the cost of threatening you would be. Will there be violence? Probably not. The threat of violence, properly displayed, is often more effective than the violence itself. He took her hand across the table. But I need you to understand, Elena. If he doesn't back down, if he insists on pushing this, I will do what's necessary. I need to know you can accept that. Elena squeezed his hand. I can accept that you're protecting us. I can accept that your world has different rules than the one I lived in before. I can't accept losing you or Sophia to someone's greed. So do what you need to do, Vincent. Just come back to us. The meeting was scheduled for Saturday night, at a restaurant in Little Italy that served as neutral ground for exactly these kinds of negotiations. Vincent dressed carefully, his suit armor as much as fashion, weapons concealed with practiced ease. Elena helped him with his tie, her hands steady despite the fear coiling in her stomach. You look dangerous, she murmured. Good. That's the point. He caught her hands, bringing them to his lips. If something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. But if it does, Vincent insisted. Marcus has instructions. He'll get you and Sophia out of Chicago within an hour. New identities, new location, enough money to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. You'll be safe. I don't want safe without you. Elena's voice broke. I want you, Vincent. Come back to us. He kissed her, pouring everything he couldn't say into the pressure of his lips against hers. I'll come back. I promise. Elena paced Vincent's study for 3 hours while he was gone. Sophia slept upstairs, guarded by 2 of Marcus's most trusted men. The mansion was locked down tight, security at maximum. But none of that mattered if Vincent didn't come back. She was wearing a path in the Persian rug when she heard it, the sound of the front door opening, footsteps in the entrance hall. Elena ran, not caring about dignity or protocol, just needing to see with her own eyes that he was intact. Vincent stood in the foyer, his suit jacket gone, his white shirt stained with blood that made Elena's heart stop until she realized he was walking normally, apparently uninjured. Vincent! She crashed into him, her hands running over his chest, his arms checking for wounds. The blood? Not mine, he said quietly, wrapping his arms around her. Santoro's. He pulled a gun, made the very stupid decision to aim it at me while I was explaining the consequences of his actions. His own men took him down before I had to. Turns out threatening the Moretti family's protection is bad for business relationships. Is he dead? No. But he's in a hospital with 2 broken arms and a very clear understanding that you and Sophia are permanently off limits. His organization has been absorbed by the Gallo family, who are considerably more reasonable about respecting boundaries. Elena pulled back enough to look at his face. He looked tired, the violence of the evening etched in the tension around his eyes. It's really over? It's over. You're safe. Sophia's safe. And I'm home. Home, Elena repeated, the word sounding right in a way that made her chest ache. Yes, you are. Vincent cupped her face, his scarred thumb stroking her cheekbones. I made arrangements while I was out. Your position here is being restructured. You're no longer head housekeeper. You're now chief operations manager, overseeing all household staff and property management for all my residential holdings. Quadruple your current salary, benefits, full decision-making authority. Vincent, I don't need— It's not charity, he interrupted. It's fixing an inappropriate power dynamic. I can't date my employee, but I can date a colleague who operates with independent authority, if you want that, if you want me. Elena smiled through fresh tears. You already know I do. Then say yes. Say you'll let me court you properly. Say you'll let me take you to dinner and buy Sophia an absurd number of books and integrate myself into your life until you can't imagine a version of your future that doesn't include me. Yes, Elena whispered. Yes to all of it. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring rather than desperate. When they finally broke apart, a small voice from the top of the stairs made them both freeze. Are you kissing my mama? Sophia stood on the landing in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed fox, her expression curious rather than upset. Vincent and Elena exchanged glances, and he squeezed her hand before walking to the base of the stairs. I am, he said seriously, addressing Sophia with the same respect he'd show an adult. I'm kissing your mama because I care about her very much. Is that okay with you? Sophia considered this, her 7-year-old face scrunched in concentration. Do you love her? I do. Do you love me too? Vincent climbed the stairs until he was eye level with Sophia. I do love you too, Sophia. Very much. You're smart and brave and kind, and you make your mama happier than I've ever seen her. You make me happier than I thought I could be. So yes, I love you both. Sophia studied him for a long moment, then nodded with decisive authority. Okay. You can kiss Mama, but you have to promise to always be nice to her and never make her cry the sad kind of crying. I promise. And you have to keep reading books with me. That's the easiest promise I've ever made. Sophia held out her arms, and Vincent scooped her up, carrying her back upstairs while she chattered about the new book she wanted to start tomorrow. Elena followed, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. 3 hours later, Sophia safely asleep again, Elena and Vincent sat together in his study. She was curled against his side on the leather sofa, his arm around her shoulders, both of them simply breathing in the reality that they were safe, together, and free to acknowledge what had been building between them for months. "I never thought I'd have this," Elena said quietly. "After Diego died, after we lost everything, I thought survival was the best I could hope for. I thought keeping Sophia alive and fed was the extent of my dreams. And now? Now I'm dreaming bigger. I'm dreaming about Sophia's college graduation, about family dinners and holidays, and growing old with someone who sees me as more than just a survivor." She looked up at him. "I'm dreaming about a life with you." Vincent tightened his arm around her. "I spent 20 years building an empire and telling myself it was enough, that power and control were adequate substitutes for connection. Then I watched you sing to your daughter in an alley, and something in me broke open. You made me want more than what I'd settled for." "We're quite a pair." Elena laughed softly. "The homeless widow and the mafia boss who fell in love over stolen chicken. The best love stories start in unlikely places." They sat in comfortable silence for a while before Elena asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. "What happens now? With us? With Sophia? With this new life we're building?" "Now," Vincent said. "We figure it out as we go. We take Sophia to the zoo next weekend. We have dinner together every night that circumstances allow. We let her get used to the idea of me being a permanent fixture in your lives. Eventually, when the time is right, I'll ask you both a very important question." "What question?" Vincent smiled, the expression transforming his usually severe features into something approaching joy. "Whether you'd consider making this arrangement permanent. Whether Sophia would like to have my last name along with yours. Whether you'd be willing to spend the rest of your life with a man who comes with considerable baggage and a complicated career?" Elena's breath caught. "Vincent Moretti, are you talking about marriage?" "Not yet. But soon." He kissed her forehead. "For now, I'm talking about building a foundation. About proving to you and Sophia that I'm not just the man who saved you from an alley. I'm the man who will stand beside you through everything that comes next." "You don't have to prove anything," Elena said. "You already have." "Maybe. But I want to anyway. You deserve to be courted properly, romanced, cherished. You deserve all the things you sacrificed when you were busy surviving. Let me give you that." Elena reached up, cupping his face with her hand. "Okay. Court me, Vincent Moretti. Romance me. But know that I've already made my choice. You and Sophia are my family now, and nothing will change that." "Nothing," he agreed, sealing the promise with a kiss. The backyard of Vincent's mansion, their mansion now, had been transformed into something magical. White lights were strung through the trees, creating a canopy of stars above the crowd of guests gathered for Sophia's 8th birthday party. The little girl held court at the center of it all, wearing a princess dress she'd picked out herself, surrounded by friends from school and a surprising number of Vincent's business associates, who'd developed unexpected fondness for the tiny girl who asked them about their work with fearless curiosity. Elena watched from the patio, one hand resting on her slightly rounded stomach, the other held by Vincent as they observed their daughter's joy. "She's in her element," Vincent murmured. "She's learned from the best. You've taught her how to work a room. I've taught her how to be confident in who she is. The rest is all you." Elena leaned against him, marveling at how natural this felt, how the past year had transformed impossible dreams into daily reality. The engagement ring on her finger caught the lights, emerald surrounded by diamonds, chosen because Vincent said it matched her eyes. The wedding was planned for the fall, a small ceremony that would officially make them a family in the eyes of the law. In their hearts, they'd been a family since that moment in his office when he'd decided saving them was worth more than maintaining distance. Marcus approached, carrying a wrapped present that was nearly as large as Sophia. "Where do you want this one, boss?" "Add it to the pile, though I think we've already exceeded reasonable gift quantities." "There's no such thing as reasonable when it comes to birthdays," Elena said. "You're spoiling her." "She deserves to be spoiled. We both spent too long with nothing. Now we have everything, and I'm going to make sure both of you never forget it." Sophia spotted them and ran over, her dress flying behind her like wings. "Mama! Papa! Come see what Uncle Marcus got me. It's a telescope, a real one for looking at stars." "Papa." Sophia had started calling Vincent that 6 months ago, tentatively at first, then with increasing confidence when she realized how it made his entire face light up. Vincent crouched down to Sophia's level, adjusting her slightly crooked tiara. "A telescope is perfect. We'll set it up tonight and find some constellations." "Can the baby see them too?" Sophia's hand went to Elena's stomach, gentle and wondering. "Not for a while yet," Elena said. "But when your brother or sister is old enough, you can teach them everything Papa teaches you." "I'll be the best big sister ever, I promise." "I know you will, Amor." Sophia hugged them both, then ran back to her friends, already explaining the telescope's capabilities with authority she'd learned from Vincent's patient teaching. "She's going to be formidable," Vincent observed. "She already is. She has you as a role model. She has us both. That's the important part." They watched the party continue, watched Sophia blow out candles on a cake that didn't come from stolen leftovers or charity, but from a life they'd built together out of impossible circumstances and unexpected love. Later that night, after the guests had left, and Sophia had fallen asleep in her room, the woodland creature room in the house on Pilsen, which they still kept because it was where their family had truly begun, Vincent and Elena stood together on the balcony of the mansion, looking out over Chicago. "Do you ever think about how we started?" Elena asked. "How all of this began with me stealing chicken?" "I think about it every day," Vincent admitted. "I think about how close I came to just firing you, to never knowing what I was missing. I think about how one decision to follow you home changed everything." "Do you regret it? The complications, the changes to your life, the domesticity?" Vincent turned her to face him, his hands framing her face with infinite gentleness. "I regret nothing. You and Sophia gave me something I didn't know I needed. A reason to come home that has nothing to do with business or power. You gave me a family, Elena. You gave me love. The only thing I regret is that I didn't find you sooner. We found each other at exactly the right time. Any earlier, and I might not have believed someone like you could love someone like me. Any later, and..." She trailed off, not wanting to imagine the alternative. "Any later, and I might have forgotten I was capable of being human," Vincent finished. "You saved me as much as I saved you." "Then we're even." "We're perfect," he corrected, leaning down to kiss her as the Chicago skyline glittered around them, witness to a love story that had started in an alley and ended up here, in this moment, with everything they'd both stopped believing they could have. Inside, Sophia slept peacefully, dreaming of stars and telescopes and the family she'd helped create with one desperate plea in the dark. Tomorrow, they'd wake up together in the house Vincent had bought, in the life Elena had rebuilt, with the love they'd discovered in the most unlikely of places. Tomorrow, and every day after that, they'd prove that sometimes the best things in life begin with someone brave enough to ask for help and someone powerful enough to answer. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.